truly do feel, and I'm not there, I'm also an actual but when I'm in kids, 38, single, no kid, but again, I love my time as a kid with you all. So, Uncle Busy, I was about to get into college. I've got a few things I want to give your time here. That'll make it just like awesome. All right, so first thing, when I show up again, it's first time at Colorado State. Oh wow, okay, so you're going to notice, especially around tree forms, these golden brown little trees known as the CSU squirrels. Okay, hold on. They're super friendly. You can feed them right out of your hand. Like if you're sitting down at a table, they're most likely going to roll up on you and just look at you like a big black eye. Want some food. Last year, one climbed my leg, bit my finger. A couple years before that, yeah, a three-legged one jumped on my lap. I named him Trey. It was all good. So have some fun with that. All right. Second thing, we touched on it a little bit, but I want to come at a different angle. Say, repeat after me. Say Friday. Friday. I got till Friday. I got till Friday to shoot my shot for somebody I saw last night. Yes, you know you came in the room, it was one of the first things you did. All right, girls, I got the crew last night. And he lifted his hand before the show. Now, ladies, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out here. All right? This is 2026. 2026. You shoot your shot. Okay? And shooting your shot is not this. That's not it. Okay? Just go say hi. Go say hi. Fellas, stay for you. All right? You got home last night. You got home. Oh, there you go. Power. He was praying last night. He was like, Jesus. I didn't know you made him like this. Is she fine? Yes, she know how to find the book of Genesis. Also, I have my good authority too. Don't slide into anybody's DMs. Go say hi to me. All right? Last thing, it's been said, and I'm going to reiterate. Commit to the process this week. I cite my source here from Mr. Kevin Sides. He gave us a great devotional yesterday as a staff team. Talked about laying down expectations, right? So look, if the Lord has somebody here for you this week, great. If he doesn't, guess what? That's good too. It's not just okay, it's good. Whether or not you meet that person, I know the Lord wants to meet you. Right? So keep your heart open to what he wants to do in what he has for you this week. So, this morning, we're tackling audience of one. Right? Audience of one. So what is the question that we're asking? Just shout it out. Who or what do I worship? Right? Because the reality is, sport plays such a significant part in our culture and in our lives. And if we're not careful, it can take an unhealthy or idolatrous place in our heart and in our lives. I'm going to take you into a core memory of mine where I think this began to happen for me. So it was 7th grade PE football. My family, we had moved from Illinois to Massachusetts the year before. And because I missed the registration deadline, I didn't get to play in 6th grade, so I was pumped to be back on the field. Not only that, I was playing tight end, which means I got to touch the ball this year. Previously, I was playing on the offensive defensive line, so like no rock. But now, I can touch it. And the play is called in the huddle. I'm like, I know it's coming my way. Like this is a play designed for me. All right, so we get to the line. I get into my route, catch the ball, step on the defender, bolt 30 yards in the end zone, cross over. And they get it, boy, what's up? What's up? What's up? Good. It didn't go like that. I was like, yay. But, like, I I remember the feeling. Like I can still visualize myself running up the field. I remember the fans. I remember my team. What I really remember is what happened after. Walking back to my car. Well, my car, I mean my mom's car. My mom's car. And on my right walks an angel. 8th grade cheerleader. Yeah. She looks at me, she said, "Nice game, Aaron." I was like, "Baby girl." I didn't go like that either. I was probably going through puberty at the time, so I was probably like, "Thanks." Thank you. But, like, when I say core memory, like, I remember that like it was yesterday. The applause, the celebration, the cheerleader, all of it. All of it. And I don't think I knew this then, but what I know now is that reflecting on that time, I think I made a vow that day. That I was going to pursue, that I was not just going to pursue it, I was going to achieve athletic success. Because athletic success gets me affirmation. It gets me praise. It gets me noticed by future cheerleaders. Yeah? So, idolatry in my heart, in my life, has a story. And so it is with all of you. There's a reason you are pulled to what you are pulled to. There's a reason that if you notice sport has that place in your life here this week, if you realize that, there's a story behind it. And so the passage that we're going to look at today is going to help us unpack that story a little bit deeper. So, before we move on, we've got to define a couple terms. All right? We've got to define idol and worship. Okay? So what is an idol? An idol is anything in your life that begins to function as a substitute for God. It's anything that begins to consume your heart, your time, your emotions, your energy, your money. In the ancient world, and even still in some cultures today, idols were represented, the deities were made of like wood, stone, or clay. And it was believed that the deity would actually come to live inside of the statue. And although this is still practiced in some cultures today, here in the U.S., our idols are more symbolic, but they're no less religious. Right? Anything can be an idol. Sex, politics, money, drugs, and yes, even athletics. What is worship? Worship means to give ultimate worth or value to something. Now, in Hebrew, right, which is the primary language the Old Testament was written in, the word worship actually means to bow. In our modern context, we tend to think about it only in terms of music, but in actuality, it describes a physical position of your body. You are kneeling or you are face down before someone or something of greater worth or power or significance. So when we ask the question of who or what do I worship, what we're asking is, what do I actually bow down to? What do I value so much that I would submit my life to it, that I would give it authority over me? And the reason we do this is because we have needs and desires. We will give our hearts to the things that we believe will meet those needs and those desires. As I mentioned, your idolatry has a story. Your needs and your desires have a story. So, let's jump into this story to help us understand our own. So you read 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 through 40 this morning. And I want to give us a little context of where we are in the biblical story before we move forward, all right? So, the book of Kings tells the story of Israel's monarchy and explains how their repeated unfaithfulness to God's covenant led to national division, national conquest, and eventually national exile. By this point in the story, God has fulfilled his promise to Abraham and he's given the Israelite people the land of Canaan. Under David and King Solomon, the kingdom becomes powerful and prosperous. But as this prosperity grows, their dependence upon Yahweh begins to fade. Israel's kings are supposed to rule under God's authority. David does okay, has some significant failures. Solomon does all right, but eventually he begins to slide. And eventually he violates all of God's commands for the king of Israel. He amasses a bunch of wealth, accumulates a ton of military power, and forms these political alliances through marriage with foreign nations. And with these marriages come the worship of their gods. And so Israel slowly begins to drift into idolatry. After Solomon dies, his son takes the throne, and the kingdom then divides. Israel, 10 tribes go north. Judah, the 2 tribes in the south. Our story takes place in the north, where this guy, King Ahab, has married this Phoenician princess named Jezebel. She's devoted to Baal worship. She's from this land called Phoenicia, right? Which was a hub for Baal worship. And together they begin to lead Israel into deeper idolatry. So in response, God sends his prophet Elijah, who announces a drought on the land, which is one of the covenant disciplines that God told would happen to his people if they began to wander from him. So this whole confrontation on Mount Carmel is designed to answer this question: who really provides? Who sends the rain? Who is it who deserves Israel's worship? Who will meet their needs and their desires? So, point number 1, what's the problem? Divided worship. In this section, Elijah confronts the people for wavering between Yahweh and Baal. So what's important to realize is that this confrontation takes place on Mount Carmel, which is in northwest Israel, just south of Phoenicia. Why is this important? Because this is basically a home game for the prophets of Baal. Right? This is just south of their territory. So Elijah is stepping into enemy territory. He's truly an audience of one. And this is often the case with us. We live in a world that is occupied territory, enemy territory in some respects. There's a lot of different things that compete to draw us away from worshiping God. And it's easy to succumb to this. Very easy. The people are torn as to who they should be following. To secure their material needs, they were willing to get in bed, so to speak, with these other nations and their gods. To ask the question, who's going to provide? You see, Baal was the Canaanite storm god. It was believed in their theology that he was responsible for sending rain. And the people need rain for their crops. They live in an agricultural society. And so to have their needs covered, they think, okay, we need to worship Baal and Yahweh. Yahweh's got this stuff, Baal has this stuff. So we're no different. Maybe our lives look a little bit like this dinner plate. We think that God is cool with him just giving us a small portion of our lives, while we seek to get our needs met in other places. However, God has a huge problem with this. When we do this, there's one strong image that the scriptures give for how he feels. It's adultery. It's infidelity. It's cheating. Or in today's vernacular, we all have spiritual side pieces and or sneaky links. So in the context of what we're talking about, we cheat on God with sport because we think sport is going to give me life. God gives me these things, but sport gives me these things. Football was my God for a long time, real long time. I obsessed about training, practice, getting better. Yes, I wanted to walk with Jesus, but I also really wanted athletic glory. My heart was really divided. I remember even one time, praying this prayer. I was just like, Lord, if you give me football success, I'll live for you all out. Like, I'll give my whole life. I won't eye nobody sideways. I'll give you my money. Like, the list goes on. I'm trying to strong-arm God into getting what I actually want. Now, thankfully, even though I was tripping when I prayed that prayer, and he didn't answer it. And in not answering it, he actually allowed me to experience the discontentment of desiring the idol of football. And that's the problem with idolatry. Ultimately, it leaves you wanting. Point number 2, warning. Idols are deceptive. They are counterfeits that don't ultimately deliver on what they promise. So there are 2 things that are true about anything that's become an idol in your life. 1, it's silent, but it still speaks. It's powerless, but it's still strong. So if we understand a little bit more about who this Baal guy was, I think that can help us understand a little bit more about why we worship the things we worship. So like I mentioned, he's a major Canaanite deity, the god of rain and storm. Right? So living in an agricultural society in a dry desert ecosystem like the people do, rain's a big deal. No rain means no crops means no food means we dead. So his storms and his rain were believed to be the thing that brought fertility from the land. And so Mount Carmel was this beautiful mountain that was very lush with vegetation, so it became symbolic of fertility and reproduction, not just for the land, but even for humans themselves. So the lure to worship Baal is really strong. Like I said, it's like we're talking life and death stuff here. Now, in order to get Baal to respond with rain, part of the Canaanite religion, what they did is they would blur the lines between religion, spirituality, and sexuality. So the phrase that you often hear in the scriptures when you read the Old Testament is cult prostitution. There's debate on how exactly all this went down, but Yahweh had told his people Israel, when you take the land, when I give it to you, you are not to engage in what they do. You are not to give your sons and your daughters to them. You are not to take theirs for yours, because they will lead you astray. And yet, people get ensnared by these practices. The blurring of the lines eventually gets worse, though, and the people of Israel actually begin to practice child sacrifice. Altars to another Canaanite deity, Moloch, were places where infants were burned alive. The phrase you see in scriptures is that Israel made their children to pass through fire. Although this practice may not have happened exactly in the time period of our story, the prophets do recount that it does happen. Israel and Judah increasingly adopt the practices of the nations, including the murder of their own children. They've turned from the God who gives life to an idol who demands death. Idolatry will always take you down a dark path. It works the complete opposite of the gospel. It demands everything from you and gives you nothing in return. And there's the sinister nature of it all. So because we believe it, we continue to give ourselves to it, regardless of how our life may be falling apart. If you worship anything other than God long enough, eventually you're going to give up something that you might not be able to replace. It may ask of you something small at first, but eventually it's going to get bigger. And you might find yourself in a place that you never thought of. In this passage, we have the prophets of Baal literally cutting themselves to conjure a response from their God. But it doesn't work. The reality is that idolatry will always make you bleed in some way, shape, or form. It's comical and yet tragic at the same time, is that for all of the dancing and the shouting that these prophets do, nothing happens. When you need your idol the most, it will leave you on red. And this is yet how foolish we look when we engage in similar practices. We beg and we beg the idol of sport, relationships, money, fame, whatever it is, to give us what we need. And yet when push comes to shove, it's going to leave you high and dry. Idolatry always, 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 always brings some kind of death. How does sport become an idol? Extreme pressure, plus powerful influence, plus a passion to win at all costs, plus intoxicating emotions, and we have ourselves an equation for sport becoming an idol. Maybe you've been there. You feel the pressure from your coaches, from your family, from friends. There's powerful influence. NIL is crazy now. Got 18-year-old kids, $1 million deals. There's a passion to win. Some of you play in massive stadiums under big lights, not just literally, but also figuratively. Where there's so much riding on you. Doesn't matter if you won a natty this last year, what you going to do this year. Plus intoxicating emotions. We all know what it feels like to be a big win. We all know what it feels like to be the away team and shut that home crowd up. It was good. And so all this can make us feel like athletic glory is a life or death endeavor. And so we give ourselves to it. The reality is, if sport is your idol, it's going to make you ugly. I mentioned football was my idol. So there were times when I got ugly. One moment that comes to mind is, I'd be sophomore, junior year of college. I was on kickoff return. We were playing team Laxton, right? At this point in the game, third quarter, probably like 45-7. They got a giddy little touchdown. I mean, not coming back, right? Not coming back. They kick off, plays over, and I hear somebody call my number. It's like, yeah, 89, yeah, 89. I turn around. I'm like, and then he says it again. He goes, yeah, 89, yeah, 89. You know who it is? It's the kicker. No shake, any kickers in the room. All right, real low. But I'm like, is he serious? And I looked this man dead in his eye, and I was like, you're a kicker. I said it twice. I wanted his mama to hear me. I was like, you're a kicker. And man, like, there was an anger that came out of me that, like, I've never experienced before. Never. Now, praise God, I was walking with Jesus at the time, not in that moment, but at the time. So I got back to the sideline, and it's just like, oh, you done messed up, baby, you know? Like, I was like, what was that? What was that? And I think what it was, man, like, it was the idol. This invisible thing that had taken root in my heart. I was like, are you going to let the kicker talk to me like that? Who does he think he is? You're better than him. They're losing 45-7. Is he crazy? Let him know. Let him know. That wasn't the only moment. There were other private moments. Jesus, this teammate wants to sleep around all the time. How come I'm not playing? Low key, he's an a-hole. Why am I not playing? My coach doesn't know what he's doing. Why am I not playing? Those moments never came out in public. They were just all in here. Right? Interchanges between me and the idol, telling me I deserved something. Right? All the while not realizing it's driving me further from the Lord. So, how do we get out of it? How do we get out of worshiping sport as our idol and begin to move towards worshiping God? And number 3, our response, daily surrender. We need to believe that God is supreme and worthy of our continual submission. So, the word you're often going to hear probably a lot this week is repent. Yeah? And I think it's very Christian. It can be a very Christianese word, right? That can lose power. But hopefully redeem that a little bit. Because what it means, especially in Hebrew, is to return. It means to return. Elijah is exhorting the people to return to Yahweh. He wants the people to recognize that it is Yahweh and not Baal who's going to bring them in. He's very specific in this contest that he challenges the prophets to. So fire was often a symbol in the ancient world that signified the presence of the deity. So he wants to prove that it is Yahweh and not Baal who brings the rain. And Baal, who's supposedly the god of storms, should have no problem doing this. So he builds his altar. And what he's doing is he's rebuilding a place of worship to Yahweh. That's what the text says, that the previous altar had been torn down, a sign of their broken relationship. So there's a beautiful symbolism that's happening here. So the word translated in repair in verse 30 comes from the Hebrew word rapha, which means to heal or to restore. So Elijah isn't just rebuilding an altar, he's symbolically healing the place of worship. It's a picture of God's desire to restore his relationship with his people. So what if repentance from idolatry is less about running from the wrath of God and more about running to the healing heart of God, who himself is running after you with goodness and mercy? Elijah is asking people to realize that it is Yahweh who is the creator. He is the bringer of the rain, and he desires that they love him with all of their heart, with all of their soul, and with all of their mind. That's the point of his offering. It's a whole offering. It's a burnt offering, which means whole offering. The whole animal was sacrificed, symbolizing the worshiper's whole devotion to God. He wants them to know that they are dependent creatures, dependent upon him, not the other way around. God is the creator of everything needed for sport, and he desires to heal you from all the dysfunction idolatry sport has brought to your life, or idolatry of anything else that's brought any dysfunction has brought to your life. So get this, he does not need you to play for him. He does not need you to play for him. That puts you in the driver's seat. He don't need you, boo. He wants you. He wants you. He wants you to play in relationship to him, not for him. What he desires is for you to play with joy and freedom, not ensnared by any of the mess that idolatry brings. Now, verse 40, problematic in our modern thinking. Right? We don't like to always think about the killing of those who are opposed to God, but it's in our text, so let's touch on it. Sometimes road to healing involves drastic measures. Context is important, okay? Israel, the nation of Israel, in this time and place, is in covenant agreement with Yahweh. They're a theocratic monarchy. Their entire life is in relation to their God. This is the way it worked in ancient societies, right? And in this covenant, the law stated that those who led God's people astray into idolatry were to be put to death. Deuteronomy 13 says, if you hear it said about one of the towns that the Lord your God has given you to live in, that troublemakers have arisen among you and have led the people of their town astray, saying, let us go and worship other gods, gods you have not known, then you must inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. And if it is true, and it has been proven that this detestable thing has been done among you, you must certainly put to the sword all who live in that town. You must destroy it completely, both its people and its livestock. So Elijah is acting in accordance with God's Torah, his law. He's not acting with rage or impulsivity or vengeance. And again, remember where this idolatry eventually leads: to the murder of their own children. And even in the context of this story, if you finish the book of Kings, it doesn't end well. This is a moment that puts a little Band-Aid on things. But then other kings come in and continue the pattern of idolatry. And eventually, this empire called Assyria comes into town, destroys the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom, and carries them off into exile because of their idolatry. God takes its consequences incredibly seriously. So, what does that mean for us today as Jesus followers? Does God want us to go killing false prophets and idolaters? No. Jesus is a complete expression of the character of God, and he does not approve of violence to accomplish the mission of the gospel. Rather, as his followers, what we're called to do is, figuratively, put to death our own sin. Anything that hinders our love and worship of Jesus. Check out Colossians 3, verses 1 through 7. If you want to do some people work there. So the battle now isn't against people, it's against sin, it's against idolatry, and anything that competes with our love for him. Because it's the reality of Jesus and his gospel that brings about real change. So last point here, Revelation declared, following Jesus changes everything. John 14:6 says, I am the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. Jesus is the way to enjoy your sport and not become enslaved by it. He is the truth that exposes the lie that the idol of athletics whispers. He is the life that exists beyond stats, scholarships, championships, or fame. So instead of giving your heart to a thief who's going to drive you into death, you're invited to attach your life to the good shepherd who joyfully laid his life down for you that you might have life to the full. He wants us to know that all of our needs, all of our desires, are met only in relationship to him. He wants to be the whole plate, not just a portion of it. He desires that how you play your sport becomes a reflection of his heart and his kingdom, where you stop obsessing about wins and losses and NIL and whether or not you can choose with me or not. You can simply play for the love of God and for the love of the game. Last night was pretty interesting. When Tech asked the question, how many of you actually have a good relationship with your sport? I don't know if you look around the room, but most hands were down. Most hands were down now. And that's an indicator, that's data. Something has your heart that's not supposed to. Jesus desires that you can stop viewing competition as a matter of life or death and can simply see it as a game meant to have fun where you can put your created body on display in a God-honoring way. Some of you have incredible physical giftings. I talked to somebody here who's got like a 600-pound bench press, bro. I was like, I'm doing everything wrong. That's what this means. That's the night talk. He desires that you can stop viewing your opponent as an enemy to be crushed, and as an imager worthy of your love and best effort. I think that one might hit more for the rest of the football guys in the room. Because every pregame, it was about killing defense. Kill. Some of you wrestlers in the room, it's about embarrassing. Even into submission. Maybe it shows up different in different sports, but the attitude's the same. Enemy. It's not the gospel. My athletic career didn't go how I envisioned it. I did not set out, or I did not attain what I set out to get. Eventually, after all the disappointment, and countless hours of training, grinding, lifting, running, sweating, blood, sweat, tears, the whole nine. I got to the point where I was like just fed up. I was hurt a lot. I had like chronic hamstring issues in college. Like every camp that always set me back. And one summer I was just like, God, I'm tired. I'm done. I'm good. And I think he let me experience enough dysfunction that I was like, this isn't worth it. And I think that was the time that I really surrendered it. I really gave it over. And something amazing happened that season. I got injured again. It wasn't the turnaround. It wasn't like everybody else got hurt and then I stepped in and I'm like, oh, I'm playing free, yeah. Didn't happen. Season-ending concussion. And a couple years ago, that would have broke me. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, would have broke me. Tears, hold on, screw this, I'm done. I was actually relieved. And I think what that shows is like the idol had less grip on me now. And I wonder, like, what's the story for you all? Where's the relief that you need from the idolatry of sport? Because again, based on the poll last night, I think a lot of people need. I think a lot of people want it. What's the story of idolatry in your life? Yes, ask who. Yes, ask what, but also ask why. Why do I worship what I worship? Why is it that sports or any other creative thing is the thing that I get pulled to? As I reflected more on my life and that moment of scoring that first touchdown, I realized it was because something was actually like missing in my own home. And that was affirmation. Words of honor, of delight, of blessing, acceptance, enjoyment, just because it wasn't there. So when this touchdown happens, and I'm getting celebrated by all these people, it was more than just a first. It wasn't just there was a first touchdown. It was something about that affirmation temporarily satisfied some thirst. Christian therapist Adam Young says it this way. He says, idolatry is often grown in the soil of pain. Idolatry is often grown in the soil of pain. Your idolatry has a story. It is not random. It is not random. There's a reason. This week, if you can slow down, open your heart, lay down your expectations, Psalm 139, allow allow the Spirit to search you, you might just find the origin of that pain, because that's where you need the gospel. There's a beauty in the 30,000-foot view: creation, fall, redemption, glorification. There's beauty in that. But Jesus has something for you right now. He has a healing for you right now that is specific to your story. Yeah? That's not just, oh yeah, Jesus saved me. No. It's Jesus saved me. Because I hear words of delight now. Where before there was nothing. I was looking to athletics. I was looking to sport to heal that wound. But when I know I have a Father who loves me, who delights in me, then the wound is healed, and the voice is quieter, and the pull towards the idol gets weaker. Idols are not destroyed, they are replaced. Where are you hurting? Where are you hurting? Where have you hurt yourself? Where have you hurt yourself in chasing after emptiness and vanity? Things that do not give life. You have a Father who wants to heal you. He's not trying to drop the hammer down. He wants to touch the broken place of your heart. So that's what he is. That's what he does. Will you let him do it this week? I'm going to pray for you guys. And then after I pray, we're going to transition to the section of your books. It's on page 18. Okay? There's going to be a chart there. On one side it has sport as an idol with some descriptions. What does sport as an idol look like? I find one or two that would resonate with you. And on the other side, there's sport as worship. And there's the healing. So now is a quiet time to begin that process of Psalm 139. Search me and know me, O Lord. See if there is any broken way in me. Lead me in the way everlasting. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for